So I had this patient come in and she came in. The complaint was she was getting a transfusion at home. She was like, I don't know why I'm here. This is so stupid. And to be honest, we agreed. We didn't know why she needed to be checked out either. She looked just fine. But the physician said, like, let's just watch her for, a couple hours. We'll run some labs. If everything's fine, you can go. And over the course of a couple of the hours that passed, she got worse and worse. And it was to the point where her oxygen saturation dropped so much and it was so quick that now I'm standing face to face with this patient who is not coherent, begging me not to die, seeing butterflies and seeing things in the air, asking where her kids are, tugging at her throat. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I had exhausted all efforts. So now I'm trying to contact this admitting physician who has no regard or no care in the world to come down and see this patient and lay eyes on them, no matter how much I said, this does not look right. I realized that nothing else mattered. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. If I'm being dramatic, if I'm like overstepping boundaries, I don't care who you are. I will do what I need to do to get this patient intubated because that's what needed to happen. I truly believe that if I didn't step into my confidence that night, she would not be alive. Yeah. So it was like the story, like the moment where I remember like my advocacy, like that was the nurse I wanted to be. And I stepped into that role that night. And like from then on, nothing mattered.
Welcome back to Club Nurse, everybody. I have with me a total like force to be reckoned with in the nursing world. I'm super excited to talk to Stephanee, and it's Stephanee Beggs, correct? Am I saying your name right?
Yep. Hmm.
Okay. So yes, you are. I want to talk to you. I want you to tell the story. Kind of tell us exactly like what you do in the nursing world. And talk to us. I know you just had a book come out, so we'll talk about that, of course. But also, I know that you launched a business, RNExplained.
Hmm.
Yeah. So tell us the origin story. How did that start?
Oh gosh. Okay. I feel like I wear many hats, so I can go down many different lanes, but I graduated in 2020 from nursing school, right as the pandemic just started. So my career was right at that time.
Thrown
I
into the fire.
started
Yeah.
literally, it's all I knew, and that's something I talk about in my book was
Yeah.
that I literally started in the fire, and that's all I knew of nursing. But so I graduated 2020. I started as a new grad in the emergency department, which it is possible. You don't have to
That's
start in
right.
med surge.
That's right.
So started there. At the same time was when I created RNExplained, which is an educational platform. I teach and sell nursing resources to nursing students or nurses. And those kind of took off at the same time. I've been doing both concurrently forever for 5 years now. And then I wrote a book, Debrief.
Debrief. Yes, I have.
Yep.
I also have my copy here. Funny,
Ah,
I actually, so I
love it.
literally today checked my mail
Yeah.
and I had gotten the copy that you had like sent me, but I
Yes.
bought a copy because I was like, I want to like dive into this book before our conversation. So I'm going to
Yeah.
gift the other one to somebody.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. Good
Yeah, so
idea.
I have two copies of it. It's great. I have not read like the entire thing, but I've gone
Yeah.
through it. I love it. I think you have some great insight,
Yeah.
very vulnerably sharing a lot of things that you've been through.
Hmm.
So kind of talking a little bit more on RN Explained,
Yes.
was this so were you just like posting like your notes or things that you had done and it kind of just like took off? Like, was this your goal? Were you planning on having this big
Right.
business?
Yeah, so not my goal literally at all. It was completely unintentional. So when I started Unexplained was like I said right as the pandemic hit. I was 1 month from graduating nursing school. So at that time I'm starting to prepare for the NCLEX. Because everything shut down and we were quarantined at home, I had nobody to study with. So I started creating these videos and these study sheets to help me learn. And I would record myself and play them back over and over to help me prepare for the NCLEX because I had nobody else to do
Yeah,
that with.
right.
So that's how I started. And one day I was so bored, TikTok was on the rise, and I posted one of those teaching videos onto TikTok for fun. For no reason. I didn't really know how to use the app or anything, and it skyrocketed. It went
Your first
viral.
post. That you
Yeah, it
yeah.
went completely viral.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize, like, huh, like everybody is loving the way I teach. And I've always had, like, growing up, I've always had a very, like, teacher-esque kind of vibe.
Mhm.
So it was really fitting, but at the time I had no idea that that was all intersecting. And so I was like, huh, okay, these people really like how I'm teaching. I'm just gonna keep posting these because it's helping me to help them. And I'm studying for the NCLEX, so I'm just gonna do it. And so I posted more and more and more, and, every single video popped off on TikTok, and then all the comments kept saying, "Where can I buy these sheets? Can I buy these? Can I buy these?" So at the time, I was like, "Why don't I just scan them into
Yeah.
PDFs and put them onto Etsy?" I created an Etsy shop, I
And these
called
were
it
just
R
these were just, like, your notes that you
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
They were literally my handwritten notes, and they were just notes I was making as I was studying for the boards. So, I started an Etsy shop, called it RNExplained, and it boomed. And
Yeah.
then I just kept going. So I passed the NCLEX. At that point, I didn't really need to make the videos anymore,
Mhm.
but I continued to because I realized how many people it actually was helping.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of grew RNExplained from there.
I love that. Were you, so talking about being like of the COVID generation of nurses, were you of the like in the nursing program, or maybe you had just you had graduated, so you kind of missed this part, but like were you having like the virtual clinicals and all of that stuff, or were you able to kind of like you were like the end of that or the
I I was the tail start of when that changed. So I had 2 weeks left of clinicals before everything turned to being online for that entire
wow.
nursing, um, year for
Yeah.
those services, and no, so I kind of lucked out. I had
Yeah.
all my clinicals in person, everything was completely fine until literally the last 2 weeks of me graduating.
Yeah. So I was reading, like I said, through your book, and I
Yeah,
called Debrief,
yeah,
and I was reading about your origin story and how your family, you come from a family of business people that are in business. If you don't mind just kind of talking to us about this, you had originally gone to school for business and were working, correct, before choosing nursing. So talk to us about that origin story with your family and kind of going to the down the business route because that's what you knew, what was comfortable for you, and
yeah.
how you were able to make that shift into like a completely different field of nursing.
Yeah, so I love to talk about this because I feel like it's such an unconventional route to nursing,
Hmm.
which not many people talk about, but it is so much more common than people talk about. So I went originally to college for business marketing. And like I talk about in my book, it was all I knew. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My parents both own a company together in software. And then my brother does film and production. And then my sister is a graphic designer. So everybody has their own kind of like company, grew up in the entrepreneur life. So when it came time to me, I'm the youngest of all of us. I was like, what do I do in college? I like the idea of business marketing, but I think I realized later on that it was more so a hobby than it was an actual profession for me.
Hmm.
And so I went down that route. Halfway through college, I realized this is not what I like. And so I decided that I knew I wanted to switch careers to something that I wanted to do, but I was so close to getting that degree in business marketing. I thought, all right, screw it. I'm just going to get the degree. I'll give it my best shot. If I don't like it, then I can always go back to school. So that was my game plan. And so I did that. I graduated. I worked for Warner Brothers
Oh.
for a hot minute. Did not like it, but I gave it my best shot, and then I
Hmm.
went back to school, and just I don't even like to say started over because a lot of the things I learned in that
It's
life of mine
helping you now.
translated oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it
Yeah.
translated so much into what I do now, but, um, I had to take new prereqs, like, ones that I didn't take for business marketing for nursing now, and then so that I had to do, and then I applied to nursing schools and did nursing school.
I love how you reframe that of not starting over because I think that's even
Yeah.
true for that people need to realize, like, even, from the other end of the spectrum, if from a nursing standpoint, if this is not something that's feeding your soul that you're no longer wanting to do, to make that pivot is not starting over because what people
Yeah.
don't realize is that nurses actually have a lot of transferable skills to other professions.
So
If
much.
right? Like, if that's something that you're thinking about doing. So yeah, it kind of goes to both ends of the spectrum. You were able to, again, with what you're doing with business, that I'm sure that that business marketing degree and your experience helped like tremendously, as
So
marketing is also obviously huge in the business world.
mhm.
If you don't mind, if you're comfortable talking about it, can you talk to me about your mom and what a pivotal or pivotal like role she
Yeah.
played in your life, in this journey for you, and kind of how this all unfolded as you were starting your nursing?
Yeah. So my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 gallbladder cancer. So random.
Yeah.
Does not run in the family, so it threw us all for a loop. She was diagnosed when I was starting my prereqs for nursing. So when I decided I want to go to nursing school, then bam, that hit. And so it's funny because I feel like a lot of people say like, "Oh, your mom was your reason that you went to nursing school." And to be honest, she wasn't my reason.
Mhm.
I had decided long before that I wanted to go, to nursing school and pursue something in medicine, but when she got diagnosed, I would say that was my, like, clarification that
Mhm.
this is exactly where I wanted to be and what I wanted to pursue. So, she was diagnosed right during prereqs, took care of her, also did my prereqs, went to nursing school. And then midway through nursing school, so I did an accelerated BSN program, which
Yeah, those are
is
tough. Oh,
ah,
yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah.
So my program was only 1 year long from May to May,
Yeah.
and in November, right before, winter break,
Mhm.
my mom passed away right at finals week. So she was there for half of the program and then
Mhm.
passed away. And then thankfully, like I would say silver lining is I got that time not in the program during winter break to
Mhm.
kind of be with my family,
Yeah.
process, grieve, all of that. And then we started back up in mid-January and I
Wow.
continued and graduated. Yeah.
Wow. And so that's, I mean, that's a pretty quick from I'm sorry, my dog is laying on my hey, Kona, get up. You're pulling me down, girl. Uh, that's I mean, pretty quick from the start of her diagnosis to when she died, right? That was a pretty quick
Yes.
process. Was she having like symptoms before? Or was it just something that came on so suddenly and like really unexpected?
Super, super crazy. So she was diagnosed in 2017, end of 2017, passed away November of 2019. So it was
Okay.
a little less than 2 years
Mhm.
that she had. Although when she was diagnosed, they gave her 6 months.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah.
pretty great that
Yeah.
she,
Defied
made
those
it
odds.
almost, yeah, almost 2 years. Her symptoms, so it's kind of funny, all growing up, she always had, issues with, like, feeling she got full too quickly. She always felt bloated, couldn't go to the bathroom, like, constipated, like, all of
Mhm.
these things. But every single time in high school, I remember she would seek out doctor after doctor after doctor of like, I know something is wrong, but I don't know what it is. And
Mhm.
I'm always getting full. I'm not really hungry, like, da da da, all these things. And every single doctor was like, well, maybe you're gluten intolerant. So
Mhm.
in high school, my entire kitchen, every single thing that
Gluten
was
free.
made was gluten free.
Mm.
And literally every snack, every ingredient was gluten free in the pantry. And then so we switched that whole lifestyle, didn't do anything.
Mhm.
Then they said, well, you need to, exercise more. My mom was we ran marathons together
Wow. Yeah.
in high school when I was in high school. So she was very active. So that wasn't it too. She had trouble losing weight, even though how active she was. And then at one point she saw so many doctors that one of them thought she had a psych issue, that
Mm.
she was saying something was wrong with her when really nothing was wrong with
That's what they
her.
always turn to when they can't figure it out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and how persistent you are, like, with your own health.
Mhm.
And then finally, my brother was getting married December of 2017. And 2 weeks before his wedding, my mom woke up with a, like, ball size, like a literal golf ball size right by her, like, super pubic, like, ovaries area,
Mm.
and it was, like, palpable, like, you could feel it over
Wow.
the skin. And it was super odd, so then she went, obviously, to the doctors, they did their testing and whatnot, and that came back as ovarian like
Mm.
a tumor on her ovary, so they thought ovarian cancer at
Yeah.
first. And this was 2 weeks before my brother's wedding. We did not tell my brother before the wedding. Only I knew and my sister knew, and then my brother's wife's parents knew.
Mm.
They didn't know, my brother and my sister-in-law. And so right after the wedding, the surgery came to take out the tumors. My mom had the fancy term, the salpingo-oophorectomy
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is, where they
To
take out
remove it all.
the
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we did that surgery right after the wedding during Christmas time. And then when the surgeon was in there was when he was like, your gallbladder looks inflamed.
Mhm.
I'm going to take a piece of that and just run it just for good measure. Turns out it was actually gallbladder cancer that
Wow.
had skipped every other organ, went to the ovaries, and was now caught in the ovaries too late. So that's
Wow.
why it was
Yeah.
stage 4.
Yeah.
But it started as gallbladder. So we thought it was ovarian at first, but it wasn't.
Wow, that's a pretty crazy story.
Crazy.
And again, I mean, just going back to advocating for your health, and again, like I said, going always comes down to, oh, there's something going on psychiatric, which I mean, sometimes there might be, but it's just like more times than not, like no, people are just
Yes.
advocating for their health.
Yes.
And it sounds like from what I was reading, it sounds like your mom was pretty badass in the business world
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Bad.
Yeah, yeah, I loved reading about that, and I'm sure like you landing yourself on the Forbes 30 under 30 list is just like a, probably just I'm sure that would have made her so proud because she didn't get to see you get to that
No.
point, right? Yeah, yeah.
Mm-mm.
So that's
Yeah.
awesome. I hope that you took the time to like really just like sit in that and be proud of yourself because that's a huge accomplishment to be able to be on a
Yeah.
list like that. Yeah, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that was
She
for RNExplained that you were on the 30 under
Yes.
30. Yeah.
That was for RNExplained. I became 30 under 30 in the education department, which is
Hmm.
actually I was the first nurse to ever
Amazing.
be named in Forbes 30 under 30 under education. So,
That's so cool. That's so cool. And
yeah.
yeah, it's a title you'll never like you'll be able to carry with you forever. So that's
Crazy.
super cool. So aside from R and Explain, let's talk about the book. It's
Yep.
called, again, for everybody out there listening, it's called Debrief. So kind of talk to us about where the title came from, where the inspiration for writing the book came from. So just talk to us about that.
Yeah. So the title, funny story actually. So I've always known that I wanted to write a book.
Mhm.
Ever since I was like in high school, growing up, I've always said no one listens to me. So I'm
Mhm.
going to write a book so people start listening to me. And it was
Yeah.
like a running joke forever. And then like obviously when I took on this social media presence and am a nurse now and people should listen to you. I
Mhm.
always made this joke with my coworkers like no one listens to me. I'm going to write a book about all these stories of
Yeah.
nursing stuff. So I've had in my notes app on my phone since literally the day I started bedside nursing
Just like
was all
documenting.
of these stories that I would if I were to write a book, I would write about those, like
Mhm.
stories that have stuck with me or lessons that I've learned, mistakes I've made, things like that. And then I always joked with my physicians that I worked with when I was night shift. I always said I'm going to write a book and it's going to be called When the World Sleeps: Stories of a Night Shift Nurse.
Mhm.
And so that's what I was thinking it was gonna be at first. Then, as time went on and I actually, like, got more serious about, like, "No, listen, I actually really wanna write a book,"
Mhm.
um, a lot of my stories weren't all strictly night shift, so I knew that that title wouldn't really
Like
go
relate to it
because
all.
it
Yeah.
wasn't yeah, it wasn't
Mhm.
all night shift at that point, it was more, like, literally any shift, and I've
Mhm.
done all the shifts.
Yeah.
So, um then I started pondering so I started writing the book. I didn't have the title yet. And then midway through writing the book, when I thought about it, I was like, what is something I don't really know how I even came up with the word debrief, but debrief in healthcare is like a huge word and a huge
Mhm.
concept that is
Yeah.
often overlooked and
So many times overlooked,
not
yeah.
really talked
That
about.
was
But
one of the things that, I literally thought of as I was looking at the book, reading it,
yeah,
hearing the title, like, I thought to myself, "How many times, like, did I need to be debriefed that
yeah,
I can't even tell you honestly, like, a moment where I can even remember, like, having a
yes.
debrief." Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so when I thought about it more, I was like, what is the concept of this book? The concept of the book is me talking about all of these stories and going through them all and understanding what I did wrong or what somebody else did wrong or a lesson I learned. And what do you call that? You call that a debrief.
Mhm.
And then I thought like, that actually really is a good play on words because we do debrief or we should
We're supposed to.
debrief in the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we often? No. And a lot of these stories were stories that I never got to debrief. And so it
Yeah.
kind of just like worked that that was the name and I just ran
Yeah.
with it after that.
what I've felt like, what I have learned talking to, because I also have like a dream of writing a book. I've been in the works of
Really?
writing a book. Actually, I have been. I've
Okay.
been writing it, and it's as you know, it's a process. And you
Yes.
finish a draft, and you're like, oh my god, this sucks. I need to go back through it. It's just a process. But what I
Mm,
have learned talking to other nurses that have written books is just how, I don't know like a better term other than just like how cathartic it is to just get everything out of your body. And even if it's just journaling and you're not going to share it with the world, just getting all of that stuff, that trauma, those things that you need to debrief about, just like getting it out of your body and seeing it on paper is therapeutic within itself. So I'm sure that your
mhm.
process through this was therapeutic, just to just get that out of your body.
Yes. Yes, definitely, and having to re-experience some of these stories as I
Yeah.
write them was yes, it was healing, it was therapeutic, it was, I remembered things that I had pushed so far back that,
Hmm.
like, resurfaced when I read some of these, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was tough, but it was a fun, like, process
Yeah,
writing.
yeah, I think that's why, like, I think a lot of us roll our eyes at the thought of journaling, but it really is,
Yeah.
it really is like, however you can get that out of your body is really.
Yes.
Sorry, my dog, get off of me. I'm so sorry. Uh, So talk to us about being, because you kind of touched on being like a new grad in the ER, which, like I said, yes, it's possible. It's a little bit, I think, harder sometimes to get into an ER as a new grad, but it is possible if that's what you're really
Yes.
wanting to do. You talked about it being really like a war zone because especially you were
Yes.
starting in during the pandemic, like just crazy, crazy times. So talk to us about that. How was it being a new grad, not only trying to like learn how to navigate the hospital, the emergency room, the fast pace, but also this was a time that was unprecedented that nobody like, things were changing rapidly. Literally gives me goosebumps just, like, think about how fast
Yes.
things were changing, how
Same.
every day we were, like, expected to, like, what's the new policy change? Like, I remember when COVID first started, it was like, nobody can use the masks, like, we have to, then it was like, "No, you
Mhm.
have to wear a mask," and it was just like things were changing because we just didn't know what was going on, to nobody's fault. Well, there might be some people's fault, but whatever. So talk to us about that. How was it being a new grad in the ER?
You know, I had a blast, and I feel like that is not the answer that people would think that
Yeah,
you would
yeah.
give, but although the times were not the best, I was so ready to be working in the ER that I was just happy to be there no matter
Yeah.
what the condition was, and yes, it was very traumatic, but I learned so much about myself, and I feel like, and I say this all the time, going in to the ER during a pandemic was that I had nothing else to base
Mhm.
the nursing profession off of. That's all I knew what nursing was
It
to
was almost
be.
like a benefit, really, kind of.
Yes. So I saw the worst of the
Yeah.
worst. I saw
Yeah.
the worst of the worst, and then we worked backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going in, everybody was like, "Man, like, how was it working during the pandemic?" It wasn't bad to me
Yeah.
because to me, that's all I knew. I was
Yeah.
trained for that. The hard part was retraining my brain after the pandemic of what the normal
Yeah.
actually was, you know? And so I think that was more tough to learn how to not live in crisis mode,
Yeah.
was tougher. But the pandemic, working during that, it was hard, but it was super rewarding, super fulfilling. You learn to really adapt, to everything because every day, like you said, was different. One day you wore a mask, the other day they
Yeah.
said don't wear the mask. The next day you had these isolation rooms, the next day these were isolation rooms,
Yeah.
you know? So it was just like every day and every week was something new. But I think the nature of the ER and, like, the personality of the ER nurse, that we love that. Like,
Yeah.
that's, like, our thing. So,
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. It was fun. Like, it was fun to go through that with a group of people that, like, you know, could relate to you and what you were going through,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Because you needed that, really.
Mhm.
I remember feeling so isolated in the sense, like, I don't know what I would have done without my coworkers and just being able to lean on them because
Exactly.
I specifically remember having, like, very heated conversations with, like, family on the phone because I lived in Arizona.
Mhm.
It just, we don't have to get into the details of all that, but it just wasn't taken seriously.
Yes.
And, when you're the one, you know, on the front lines doing, doing these things, helping people, seeing what's actually happening, you take it personally because you're like, how can you not take it as seriously, but then they weren't seeing what was actually happening, or they're ignoring it, turning a blind
Yeah.
eye. So yeah, it was very isolating. And I remember like I talked about this actually in my last podcast with the guest about how I went to therapy for the first time like years after the pandemic, and I
Mhm.
the first session did not even expect to bring up being a nurse during COVID, and like
Mm.
I immediately just like started crying, and I was like, I didn't even realize that was like that I had those emotions still. I had just never like talked about it in that way, like just in like
Yes.
with someone that's not gonna like judge what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I just think that, again, you writing it out on paper is so helpful. So what do you think do you have any specific scenario or patient that sticks out to you in your head during the pandemic that you felt the need to like write about it? Yeah. So what's like the top one that like always comes to mind for a patient?
The first one, and I wrote about this in my book, is the very first patient I had, that I gowned up. It was the first patient that I fully gowned up for, and like COVID PPE, not just your casual like
Yeah.
gown up, like full COVID PPE, and going into the room. And it was, my first time kind of like on my own. Like my preceptor wasn't with me. I
Hmm.
walked into the room. The physician was behind me, also wanted to walk into the room at the same time. And I'm like, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm working next to the physician. I was so excited. And then the first things that came out of her mouth to the patient was, "You're not gonna make it out of here alive. And call your family because you are being admitted. COVID is really bad for you." And I remember sitting there like damn, like this is real. Like, you hear about it all the time and you can tell your family and you see it, but being literally face to face with it
Yeah.
was like, I will never forget that patient and that like scenario of like me walking in so
Like
like
ready to go.
excited
Yeah.
to, yeah, ready to go with the physician, and then somebody's world is just crashing down, and he did not live. He got
Huh.
admitted to the hospital, or we brought him upstairs, and then I don't think he ever made it out, and
How
it was
old was he?
so sad. He was older. He was, like, I would say maybe in his, like, 65,
Hmm.
maybe 70,
Hmm.
um, and he didn't look good, like,
Yeah.
I knew, but it was the harsh reality of, like, I knew it, but to see it and to hear those words was
Yeah.
so shocking to me,
Do
and
you
that
think that
put me.
this was like the doctor just being just like so burnt out and just like not knowing what to say, or was this kind of like a trend from them, or like what do you think that was? Or
I
and do you
think it
feel and
was
do you think that's like an appropriate way to do it? Like how do you feel about that, I
I
guess?
think it was a little bit of both. I
Okay.
think in that time, what the question I asked myself is, was there an appropriate way to do it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
So
in a
hard.
way, you're sugarcoating it for the patient, or you say it flat out, to the patient, and in a way, that is almost kind of, what is the word? Like, oh my gosh, what is the actual word for that? Like, the physician is protecting themselves too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
when they say something so bluntly, it's almost, I feel like, a way for them to protect themselves from the emotion of
Yeah.
that and
To
the
not like
harsh
attach to
reality.
them, like to kind of put up a boundary, a wall, to not like
Exactly.
emotionally get involved in that. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I don't even know if there is a right way,
Yeah.
like, to go about it, and that, I think, was the best way for that physician to just get out the words without being attached to them or
Yeah.
feeling it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, it's a good way to
Uh,
put it because if you think about just the numbers of people we were seeing coming in and decompensating and dying, it was
mhm.
like, yeah, you can't as the healthcare professionals being there every day, like you physically cannot carry that.
Yeah.
Versus in our day-to-day life working in the ER, yes, you're seeing things, um, but it was not to the we were not seeing we don't see death now to the volume we were seeing it during the
Yeah.
pandemic. Like, I also remember I worked at a very, very busy ER in Arizona, and I just remember same thing, kinda like what you were talking about. It was I think this was kinda universal of just like the iPad, FaceTime, you need to call your
Mhm.
family, and having these conversations with people in their 40s, like, that are otherwise were healthy, and these were things that I would try to communicate to my family and stuff, is like, this is not just old, unhealthy people coming in, this is
Yeah.
across the whole spectrum, and I'm telling you, like, I'm helping somebody FaceTime their family at 40 who's otherwise, pretty healthy to just possibly say their goodbyes.
Yeah.
And that's heavy. That stuff sticks with you. And again, it's not like it's just like one here and there. Like that's when you're dealing with that every day. Um, it's a lot, and I think a lot of nurses who worked during the pandemic still carry a lot of this weight and had not processed that. And I think
Yeah.
by reading your book, it also, even for me, just made me feel like less alone. Like, oh, I wasn't like the only one experiencing this. I wasn't crazy. There's other people out there that have these stories as well. So
Yes. Yes.
um, crazy times, COVID.
Crazy.
Did you do travel nursing during COVID as well, or?
Not during COVID. I
Mm,
did it, like, post-COVID.
okay.
So I didn't get the COVID pay, crisis pay,
Yeah.
but
You didn't need you
yeah,
were building your business, you were fine.
exactly. Exactly.
I did capitalize on a little bit of the COVID pay at the,
Good.
yeah, it was definitely worth it. I worked myself to death doing it, but it was the pay
Mhm.
that, was like, how do you
Exactly.
pass those contracts up?
Exact
Um, Another story I wanted you to talk about that I think people will gain, or benefit from hearing is talk about the story you wrote in the book about where you felt the confidence like build and like when you finally
Oh,
felt that moment of just like,
yes.
I am confident. Like, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of my favorite hardest but favorite chapters to write because this one stuck with me
Yeah.
for literally every day I think about this
I can
patient.
understand why. Yeah.
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 Long story short, I had a patient came in. This is when I was no longer a new grad. I was on my own, but still new, kind
Mhm.
of, and still trying to find like my place in the ER. And so I had this patient come in, and she was fine by our visual presentation. She was fine. But as she came in, the complaint was she was getting a transfusion at home for some sort of condition. And I go through all the detail of that
Yeah.
like in the chapter. But she was getting this transfusion at home, had the most slightest complaint of a like can't catch the breath type of complaint, but it was so minimal. And thank God to the home health nurse who caught that and, followed the protocol and stopped the
Yeah.
infusion and wanted
Sure.
her to get checked out at the ER. Um, but anyway, so upon presentation, that was how she was. She was like, "I don't know why I'm here. This is so stupid." And to be honest, we agreed. We didn't know why she needed to be checked out either. She looked just fine.
Mhm.
But the physician said, like, let's just watch her for, a couple hours. We'll run some labs. If everything's fine, you can go. And over the course of a couple of the hours that passed, she got worse and worse. And it was to the point where her oxygen saturation dropped so much and it was so quick that now I'm standing face to face with this patient who is not coherent, begging me not to die, seeing butterflies and seeing things in the air, asking where her kids are, tugging at her throat, like, what am I supposed to do? And I had exhausted all efforts of calling the physician because the patient was now being admitted. It is no longer the ER
Right.
physician, it's the attending.
Which is an important distinction because I don't think people
Yes.
realize how
Oh, it works.
how much the um, collaboration shifts when you have
Yes,
go from ER to inpatient and getting them
exactly.
down there.
Exactly. So while I'm still playing ER nurse with my other patients, I'm now like admitting nurse, kind of like
Mhm.
doing floor things with the admitting physician. So there's a lot of layers to it when you
Yeah.
like work in ER. But so now I'm trying to contact this admitting physician who has no regard or no care in the world to come down and see this patient and lay eyes on them, no matter how much I said, this does not look right.
Yeah.
And so it was in that moment that everybody around me, yes, I had the support of like my ER team, but they also were busy. And so in a way you are, I don't like to say alone because you're never alone, but like I know the patient the most. It's my
Right.
patient. I need to fight for them.
Mhm.
And so that's what I had to do. And so I I I I did so many things and I talked about it in the chapter,
Yeah.
but there were so many stops that I had to pull to, advocate for this patient, and that was the moment I realized that nothing else mattered. That, like, that's when I stepped into my confidence of, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, if I'm being dramatic, if I'm, like, overstepping boundaries, I don't care who you are. I will do what I need to do to get this patient intubated because that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it literally makes me, like,
Yeah.
emotional when I think
Yeah.
about it because
Yeah.
I truly believe that if I did
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
I truly believe that if I didn't step into my confidence that night, she would not be alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
I believe that too.
it was,
100%.
like, the story, like, the moment where I remember, like, my advocacy, like, that was the nurse I wanted to be,
Yeah.
and I stepped into that role that night, and, like, from then on, nothing mattered. Like, I don't care what you think of me, ego, hierarchy, nothing mattered. And that was, like, a huge moment for me because I feel like people, new nurses, they felt like how I felt,
Yeah.
and they don't know, like, how to not overstep boundaries, or they get scared to say
Mhm.
something, or they think that they're, being over dramatic about something or whatever, and so they just don't say anything at all. They take the heat, they take it all, and, like, you have to step into your confidence at one point, and sometimes it's not easily taught. It has to be, like, in an experience, and for me, that was my experience, was that moment where I had no choice but to step into that confidence. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that I can see
yeah.
obviously that that brings emotion out of you, and it's
Ugh,
not always easy
every
to talk about.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and no matter how much I taught, like, I literally wrote an entire chapter about it thinking like, "Oh, I've
Yeah.
processed that," like,
No, it
no
takes you
matter
back.
how
Yeah.
many times it
Yeah.
takes you back because I feel like that was, like, a huge moment of my career was that
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Those things again, like you're saying, no matter how much you talk about it, write about it,
Yeah.
yes, you may have processed that, but it brings you back there. I have similar stories. I've been on podcasts, same as you're like now, where you when you talk about it, no matter how many times you have, like it just brings you there. You feel that
Yeah.
emotion that your body felt. It's literally wired in your body and your nervous
Yes.
system.
I agree.
And I think that that is such an important story for so many reasons, and not honestly, not even only for new grads, because even as you know, I've been a nurse for almost 7 years, and I still will sometimes feel that like, oh, like, are they going to think I'm stupid if I say something, or
Yeah.
am I overstepping? Like that, those things constantly come up. But the message you're putting across is to yes, you might feel that way, but say what you need to say anyways. And I talked about this with my last guest as well. I don't know if you know her work. She was on NurseCon. I don't know if you was on the cruise.
Yeah.
But her name's Jennifer Johnson. She wrote Nursing Intuition. Um, I would check it out. It's a great book. But her whole thing is like trusting that intuition, that gut feeling, and
Mhm.
even if you're wrong about maybe there's nothing wrong with the patient. Obviously you knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
But even if the doctor comes, you're wrong, and they think that you're stupid for telling them, just the fact that they are laying another, eyes on the patient again and reassessing, the patient's odds of having a positive outcome just increase so much. And it's like, doesn't matter. Trust that instinct, trust that intuition. And if you are, afraid of what they're going to think of you, just if you can not make it about yourself and make it more
Yeah.
about the patient. This is about the patient.
Yes.
Even if I feel and look stupid, who cares? Like
Mhm.
I can at least now have peace of mind that the patient is okay, or that there's, a physician here to put eyes on them.
Yeah, or
Right.
you've done everything that you could have done. You
Yes.
didn't hold anything back
Yes.
inside, and that
You're not gonna go
you
home after your shift and, like, be like, "Oh my god, like, why didn't
like,
I
I
say that?"
should have
Like
said something, or
yes.
that I think is worse than not saying
Worse.
anything at all.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you go home and then you're, like, losing sleep. You're like, "Oh my god, like, how is that patient doing? Like,
Yeah,
did I miss something because I didn't say it?" Versus if you just say it and you're wrong, like, whatever, you can go home
yeah,
and, like, sleep knowing, "Okay, well, I at least said what I felt," like, and
mhm.
you're gonna learn from that. So I think that's
And to be honest, I feel like your peers and physicians, when if you work alongside them in the ER, we work alongside them all the time.
mhm,
Even if you are wrong, the fact that you're saying things out loud
mhm.
sometimes makes you more respectable, I
Yes,
I think,
I
and
think so.
there's been so many times after that where we've been in the middle of a code or, like, something that is so high stress, and the physicians will come to me to ask me
Yeah.
questions because they respect,
Right.
the thought of, like, "Let's brainstorm this out
Mhm,
loud," and, like, we're able to do that. So I think, like, if anything, like, don't ever think that you're being dumb, stupid,
mhm.
overstepping, overreacting or something, because if anything, it makes you more respected.
Right. And I feel like in those moments where you say something and then you feel stupid, I feel like you learn more in those instances
Yes.
because you're not gonna
Yeah.
forget how you felt. You're gonna be like, "Oh my god," like, but you
Yeah.
learn, and that's just part of it. Like, it's a continuous, like, learning process as we know with nursing and healthcare. Um, I did wanna bring, just a quick quote from the book that I felt was,
Ooh.
something I loved. It's towards the end. Everybody needs to get a copy of Debrief. It's really great. Um,
Yeah.
so let me pull this up here. Okay. So yeah, so this is towards the end of Stephanie's book, Debrief. And what she says is if you remember anything from this book, let it be this. Your humanity is not a weakness, it's your greatest strength. The ability to feel deeply, to question, to struggle, and still return to work with compassion is what makes you a remarkable nurse. And then I'll read the next part too. To the new graduates or those about to take the leap into practice, give yourself grace to grow into the feeling of competence. The path to confidence isn't a straight line. It's filled with challenges, mistakes, and moments of doubt, as you've clearly seen through this entire book. But with each experience, you are becoming. Remember that. And I just felt like that was such a great way to kind of like tie up the book into just like push that message across. I think the book is really powerful. Like I said, I didn't read the entire thing, but like the things that I have picked out of it so far is nurses especially need to read it, need to see it, to just not feel so alone and
Yeah.
hopefully give other people, and I think especially new grads, that courage to make mistakes and to learn from them and have some grace for themselves because I think nurses are naturally just like so hard on themselves. Like we carry a lot of things we care. We're empathetic. That's why we're doing this. Um, so I think the message of your book really shines through in all of your stories, and I hope that you really take the time to just understand that and appreciate that. It's important work, and I'm grateful that I've gotten my hands on it, and I'm excited to finish reading
Yay.
it. Yeah, I have one more question for you.
Yes.
So, if you take away take away the business, the book, the nursing license, everything, who is Stephanie? Like, what makes you you? If you strip it all down, like what lights you up in this world? What makes you feel like the most authentic version of yourself?
Oh gosh, that what's funny is I always think about that. I always
Yeah.
think like if if I had none of this, like who am I?
Hmm. Hmm.
I would say like is the question like what do I like aside from all of like nursing and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, just there's no wrong answer. Just like who are you? What lights you up? Like, is it your family? Is it traveling? Is it just like,
Yeah.
like when you're not in the nursing, when like you're not working, you're not doing anything with your business, when you're not writing a book, who is Stephanie? Like, what are you doing? What's making you feel the most joy?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a lot more boring than people
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I am like a big homebody. I
Hmm.
love to like cook a good meal. So my mom growing up was a chef.
Hmm.
Aside from her wearing many hats, she also was a chef, and so I kind of grown into loving to cook and to bake. So
Nice. Love
I
that.
love doing that. Um, I love spending time with my family and friends, and
Mm.
sometimes friends are not in nursing because that
Yeah.
gets me away. Outdoors, like, I've now found, like, a love for, like, health and wellness, like, really tapping into that these days. I think it's the 30 mentality. When I turned 30, I was like, "I need to, like,
Yeah.
focus on me, like, my
Yeah.
self-care." So
Love
I'm
that.
learning,
Yeah.
like, all
Yeah.
my self-care favorites right now, and those are some of them, and yeah, I just, like, love a good, calm day,
Yeah.
relaxing.
I love it. I mean, I feel like it's a good question to always just ponder.
Yeah, it
I think
is.
I think a lot of us. I mean, even if I was to like ask myself, I would probably start sweating. Like, oh my god, I don't know, because it's just one of those things that you're like, who am I? Do I even know who I am?
Literally.
So I think it's a good question to always just kind of ponder and to think about.
Yes.
So I appreciate you coming on Club Nurse. How do people find you? How do people get your book? How do people, if
Yes.
they need resources with RN how do we find you?
Yeah, so I have any educational you want a little educational tidbit here and there, Instagram and TikTok, Stephanee Beggs on Instagram, Steph Beggs on TikTok. I post all educational stuff and a little bit about my life lately too, so you can see a little more behind the person.
Mm.
Um, to buy any of my educational resources, rnexplained.com. that has all of my nursing resources for any single step of the nursing journey that you are on. You can also get my book Debrief on there as well. If you buy from my website, I hand ship them myself. So it
Mm,
comes with like little stickers, bookmark,
yes.
thank you
I got
stuff,
a book
whatever.
got a bookmark. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, got the stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it is also available, though. Debrief is available on Amazon too. So if you
Oh,
want that
cool.
tomorrow, you can get it on Prime. So
Love it.
yeah.
Are we finding this in, like, bookstores anywhere, or is it just online that we're finding it?
Soon, soon.
Okay.
So I'm loading like, it takes the process is crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
know this with, like,
Mm.
writing a book, but there is
Takes a
so
long
much
time.
behind the scenes.
Mhm.
But soon it will be available in bookstores and Target,
Cool.
and that's, like, international as well. But, yeah, so right now my website and Amazon.
Cool. Love it. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us. Your stories are amazing. People are gonna
Thank
connect to
you.
them. Get the book, everybody, Debrief.
Thank
So thanks, Stephanie.
thank you.